All right, welcome back. Did anything happen this week in the stock market? One or two things. So we'll get into it. There's a lot going on this week. Stay tuned for more of my earnings videos. We'll touch on some of the earnings, but for a deep dive, you'll see more earnings numbers coming out over the weekend. But let's take a look at the charts here. Nasdaq had a slow grind up, but it wasn't without a lot of chop. We had a lot of sharp drops and then slowly trickle back up. Today was another good example of that, where we really just kind of had a huge sell-off midday. The morning was looking pretty good. So I'm going to just move this trend line here. We could still be in a series of lower highs and potentially lower lows if we get a big drop next week. But a lot of volatility. I'm enjoying it, but it is definitely hard to be in a lot of positions, at least intraday, if you're a trader. I saw today some traders had a trade on, and Trump tweeted something, and the market just completely went down. And that's the world we are going to be living in the next 4 years. Is drop of a dime, the market can move 100 points quickly. So S&P also big sell-off intraday, but similar to the Nasdaq. It looks like we did hit an all-time high. That was last week. We got close today, but we pulled back from that. The Dow Jones hit an all-time high this week and is pulling back. Russell 2000 not doing anything this week. This chart needs to get cleaned up. Bitcoin with a big sell-off today as well. Let's take a look at gold. Gold actually had a really nice week this week, but a little sell-off here as well. Dollar, let's take a quick look, making its way back up. This is going to be very interesting with the dollar. Was this a brief sell-off and we continue to move up, or are we going to continue to move down? As far as the rates, let's take a look at the 10-year. We did have a huge drop from our recent high of 4.8%. This is going to be very interesting as well. To me, this still looks bullish, this chart. Who knows? I don't know how the market's going to react, but this still looks like we're in an uptrend. We'll have to wait and see if we break below this 4.5 level. Mortgage rates, I believe, are not moving at all, around 7%. Not sure what's happening there. TLT, not looking so hot here. And then the most volatile name this week was Nvidia. We talked about it earlier on in the week. Let me clean this chart up a little bit. But it had its 17% down day. Then it had its 9% recovery bounce. And then it was looking really good this morning, and then again turned around in the afternoon. I mentioned this in our early week update. It was concerning to me that the big money did not step in and buy the dip on Nvidia. This bounce was mostly fueled by retail, which concerns me. I was a dip buyer on that Monday, and we haven't seen the big money come back in. So I think we are going to continue to bleed out here on Nvidia. How low it goes, who knows? They do have earnings coming up here in a few weeks, February 26th. So we've got a ways away. We've got just about a month. Tesla didn't do a whole lot. Amazon chugging along nicely. Google looks great, chugging along nicely as well. Let's take a look. Microsoft was a big mover to the downside this week. Where's Microsoft? I believe Microsoft was down 6% after their earnings. No bounce. Again, just volatility here. It's crazy to see Microsoft. It was at 415, went up to 450, back down to 415, back up to 450, back down to 415. I mean, this is a $3 trillion business. Making 6% swings on a day-to-day basis. The other one that had earnings was going to be Meta and Apple. Meta's earnings were phenomenal. I'm very surprised. with their recent quarterly numbers. Really good stuff there. Apple, I haven't done a deep dive on their numbers. Market initially liked the numbers, and it started to sell off intraday. So a lot of profit taking on Apple. And I believe that was the big names for earnings. We'll get into the numbers here in a second. But just a lot of chop, a lot of volatility in the markets. And I think that's going to continue for the next few months as we get all this news, earnings, geopolitics, all those items are going to continue to move the market back and forth. So chop in the indices, SPY, Dow, Nasdaq. We already talked about the DeepSeek AI. Now I gave you my initial thoughts on Monday. This story, I listened to a lot of people's takes, and I've got a lot more information on this. So my refined thoughts on this DeepSeek AI is that this is a legitimate breakthrough in AI for large language models, and hopefully for other use cases. We're going to be able to be a little bit more efficient when it comes to how we run some of these models. I still don't believe that DeepSeek was developed for the very low price of $6 million, and I don't believe that they used a very small amount of Nvidia chips. I still think those two pieces of information, I need to see more proof that that's the case. But this is a legitimate model. You're seeing a lot of companies adopt it. Microsoft, Nvidia, I think Meta. It's great that it's open source, so anyone can take this model and build on top of it. So I think as a consumer and for the world of AI, this is a great breakthrough, and a lot more developments will come because of this. So that is all great, and whoever is paying for AI services, whether you're a business or a consumer or a company, a small business, this should drive the cost down over time. I think the market is still deciding on what's the impact on Nvidia's outlook for the future. After listening to Tesla's earnings call, we're still going to need a ton of chips for real world AI. So to run a chatbot, the price of AI will probably go down, and the need for these massive data centers may go down for running a large language model. But when it comes to robotics, self-driving cars, self-driving tractors, drones, all these different factories, whatever, where you're going to have robotics that are going to need to work in the real world, you're going to need chips for those actual robotics. So for a robotic arm to move things on a car assembly line, you're going to need chips in those devices, and you're still going to need the data centers to power some of that and train those devices. So I still think Nvidia is a wonderful business. The market just needs to figure out what is the multiple that they want to put on Nvidia based on what's the outlook for growth. So I still think Nvidia is going to be very choppy, and it'll be very interesting to hear what they have to say for earnings. But that is my updated thoughts on DeepSeek. We'll definitely hear a lot more about this over the next few months. When it comes to the new administration, they announced over the last couple days they plan to implement tariffs on Canada and Mexico. I haven't really dug into this, but when it comes to tariffs, I don't think anybody really knows how this is going to work out. Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? And if so, for who? Is it good for Canada, good for Mexico, good for the United States, good for the consumer, good for businesses? We need to kind of see how this plays out, and it's going to take a little bit of time, but I do expect the market to not like this type of news, as we've seen, right? This sell-off in the market today, this huge drop in the market was right when this news came out. So I think the market's pricing in some of this uncertainty because we don't really know how this is going to play out. So that'll be interesting to see how those things develop and what other policies are coming down the pipe. So it's going to be a lot of that these next few months. Again, the earnings we talked about. Tesla's earnings, real quick, before I put out my deep dive into it. The numbers weren't that great, but the story is looking better for Tesla's long term. So we're in a very interesting time where value isn't valued like it used to be. People are making money by being influencers. People are making money by selling NFTs, and there's not as much value in the traditional sense. I'm having a hard time explaining it, but it's kind of a hard concept for a lot of people to grasp, because you can look at a certain company where their valuation is great, their cash flow is great, their balance sheet is great, but they're a small fish compared to a Tesla. And the reason for that is Tesla is part fundamental and part meme slash narrative slash story. People are really putting a high price on the story of Tesla's going to be the most valuable company in the world. They're going to be the leader in robotics and AI, energy, all kinds of pieces of the business that are really showing rapid improvement. That's why the stock is holding up. If people were just valuing Tesla as a car company, the stock would be down double digits based on this recent earnings report. The car company, this is my opinion, they're still mainly a car company. That's where their revenue comes from. But they take their profits and they invest those profits into these other stories that are showing a lot of promise and a lot of reason for potential growth. Now, another company that was similar to this is Amazon. Amazon makes all their profit from AWS, advertising, and a couple other businesses. They don't make money on sending you deodorant. But that was the story at the beginning. That was the fundamental story is, oh, they're going to get all this adoption to sell deodorant online and ship it to you quickly. They then took their revenue from that and invested it into these other business models that are really now the cash cows of the business and has really helped the company scale. So Tesla is going to be doing that and is doing that on a similar scale. That's the parallel that I see here. So back in the day, people could have said Amazon is a bubble, its valuation doesn't make sense, it's trading at this price to earnings ratio, blah, blah, blah. People still say that with Tesla, but there's a great story, there's a great narrative with the potential for Tesla. Now, people are seeing this potential be realized much more every day, and you hear Elon on every earnings call say Tesla's going to be a $10 trillion business, or whatever number he throws out there. So anyways, that's just, I think, something that the next 20 years, more and more people are going to have to jump on that boat. It's hard to value companies just based on the numbers. You have to understand the story and the attention that is going to help drive the stock price up. So that's my little tangent on value and fundamentals. So we talked about Microsoft. The question here with Microsoft is they did have a little bit of a slump in cloud computing. And if there's a slump in cloud computing, they're spending all this money to build out the cloud. And if there's not as much of a demand, what does that look like for their CapEx down the road? So is there a need to continue to overbuild if your demand is starting to weaken a little bit? Who knows? Amazon or Apple had a great quarter, not a lot of growth. They had China sales that were down a little bit for the iPhone, but we already know that. But it's just a cash cow. You can't argue with Apple as being just a phenomenal business and a great cash cow. Meta really killed it here. 50% increase in profits and a 21% rise in revenue. Killer. Zuckerberg is really done a great job in the last few years turning that ship around for Meta. We had the Federal Reserve meeting. They don't have it on here, but they did not raise rates. I have not listened to the press conference yet. I do want to listen to it over the weekend, but no news on that front. Interest rates dropped, so maybe they hinted towards cutting sometime this year. That is about it for the economic data. There was a couple other numbers that came out, but they were all in line, nothing too drastic. The headline this week is going to be Trump and the DeepSeek. Those were the big movers this week, and obviously the earnings. And next week, we've got a big week as well. Let's take a quick look here at next week. We do have earnings. We've got Amazon. I know we've got Google next week. And it is a new month. We are in February. So for February, our economic data, we've got non-farm payroll, ISM, PMI, we've got the JOLTS numbers, and some more unemployment claims. So a lot of jobs. It's jobs week next week. So nothing to me that I'm super interested in. I'm interested in the reaction, but there's no Fed talk. There's no inflation numbers. So it'll just be looking for the reaction and catching up on earnings. It'll be another busy week, I'm sure. So everyone catch their breath this weekend. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, let me know down below. And everyone have a great weekend and peace out.